The Catholic Church in Nicaragua and China is currently facing severe persecution by their respective governments. While the blame ultimately falls on the corrupt leaders of these nations, it is important to note the consequences of the Church's alliances with authoritarian regimes. One example of this is the relationship between the Catholic Church and the Nicaraguan government of Daniel Ortega. Ortega came to power in 1979 as part of the Sandinistas, a Marxist revolutionary group that overthrew the right-wing dictatorship of President Anastasio Somoza. Supporters of liberation theology, a popular movement within Catholic liberal circles, openly praised the Sandinistas and their government. However, Pope John Paul II and Cardinal Joseph Ratzinger spoke out against this alliance. During his visit to Nicaragua in 1983, John Paul chastised Father Ernesto Cardinal, a Catholic priest and minister of culture in the Sandinista government, for holding office in a secular government, which is forbidden by the Code of Canon Law. Ortega and his wife, Rosario Murillo, were present to witness the rebuke. The following year, Cardinal Ratzinger issued an instruction cautioning against the fusion of the Gospels of Jesus and Mark's that was prevalent in liberation theology. He argued that prioritizing the political dimension of theology leads to a misunderstanding of the person of Jesus Christ and the salvation he offers. These interventions by the Church were welcomed by many priests in the Americas, including Nicaraguan prelate Rolando Alvarez, who is now the Bishop of Matagalpa and an influential member of Nicaragua's Conference of Catholic Bishops. Bishop Alvarez has watched as Ortega, who was voted out of office in 1990, reinvented himself as a devout Catholic when he returned to power in 2006. Despite his apparent piety, Ortega ruled like a traditional Latin American leftist dictator and worked to crush Nicaraguan democracy. This serves as a cautionary tale of the dangers of the Church's involvement with authoritarian regimes. While the Church may seek to promote its values and beliefs, it must not overlook the impact of these alliances on the lives of ordinary believers who may face persecution and oppression. Two Catholic bishops, Rolando Alvarez of Nicaragua and Joseph Zen of Hong Kong, are facing extreme persecution from their respective governments for opposing their brutal policies. Bishop Alvarez was made a bishop at a remarkably young age of 44 and has opposed Nicaraguan President Daniel Ortega's policies for years, going on a hunger strike in protest last year. As a result, he was sentenced to 26 years and 4 months in prison on trumped-up charges of being a traitor to the homeland. Despite being given the option of expulsion, he refused and is now being held in a maximum security prison in Managua as a symbol of the Church's commitment to human rights. Similarly, Cardinal Zen, the 91-year-old Bishop Emeritus of Hong Kong, has been targeted for his pro-democracy views. Since 2018, the Holy See and the Chinese government have had a pact allowing the government to choose bishops subject only to a veto by the Pope. However, the pact seems to be ineffective, with China recently brazenly ordaining an auxiliary bishop for a diocese that is not recognized by the Vatican, as Cardinal Zen predicted. He has also been convicted of failing to register a humanitarian relief fund and fined for supporting pro-democracy demonstrators during the mass protests in Hong Kong in 2019. Cardinal Zen is not alone in his stand against China's assault on democracy. Catholic pro-democracy advocate and Hong Kong newspaper Apple Daily founder, Jimmy Lai, is also a victim of China's persecution. He will stand trial on charges under the Hong Kong national security law, facing a possible life sentence. These instances remind us that when the Church cozies up to authoritarian governments, it is ordinary believers who end up paying the price. It is a clear indication that the Church must uphold its commitment to human rights, democracy, and justice, even in the face of persecution. A small group of conservative American Catholics, known as integralists, have expressed admiration for China and remain silent about the persecution of religious minorities in the country. Integralism is a political ideology that seeks to subordinate national politics to the spiritual authority of the Catholic Church, or at least, its interpretation by its proponents. This label has been used by fascist and autocratic movements in 20th-century Europe. Unfortunately, this American version of Catholic integralism is gaining traction among some young Orthodox Catholics. Experts in political thought are concerned about this trend and are trying to steer them away from it. University of Texas professor Justin Dyer wrote in the Washington Post that integralism is a reaction to the liberalism of the far left, and is monumentally imprudent as a political vision. The problem with integralism is that it celebrates characteristics like a return of confessional states, religion-based citizenship, and enforced orthodoxy. James Patterson, a professor at Ave Maria University and scholar at the Catholic University of America's Institute for Human Ecology, has identified neo-integralists, who openly admire authoritarian regimes, embrace European parties with historical ties to fascism and contemporary ties to Russia's government, and are mysteriously well-disposed to the Chinese government. It is alarming that Beijing has admirers within the Vatican as well. Bishop Marcelo Sanchez Sarando, then the Chancellor of the Pontifical Academy of Sciences, proclaimed in 2018 that those who are best implementing the social doctrine of the Church are the Chinese. He even claimed that the Chinese government was defending the dignity of the person in its pursuit of the common good. Such naivety, to put it charitably, is a reminder that some Christians are susceptible to the temptation to secularize the kingdom of God and the allure of repressive governments. They do not represent the authentic voice of the Church. Unfortunately, the faithful in persecuted communities who uphold the dignity of the person run the risk of terrible retribution. Therefore, it is the responsibility of ordinary Christians to closely monitor their situation and ensure that their heroic witness is never ignored. Thanks for watching. Please like and subscribe.